September 29th, 1918, France. World War I is ending, but no one told Frank Luke that. He was still fighting. An American pilot, 20 years old, wild, reckless, dangerous. The kind of pilot other pilots didn't want to fly with because he made no sense. Because Frank Luke didn't hunt aircraft, he hunted balloons, German observation balloons, tethered, defenseless, but guarded by anti-aircraft guns and surrounded by German fighters. Most pilots thought balloon hunting was suicide, pointless, a quick way to get killed, but Frank Luke didn't care what other pilots thought. He shot down 14 balloons, 14, when everyone said it couldn't be done. He became the most feared pilot in the American Expeditionary Force. But on September 29th, something changed. Frank Luke flew a mission that would be his last, a mission where he was supposed to hunt balloons, but something went wrong, something that ended everything. And in his final moments, Frank Luke showed the world what true American courage looked like. This is the story of the balloon buster, the pilot who defied death, the warrior who died doing what he did best, the American pilot whose final mission became his greatest legend. How did a kid from Phoenix, Arizona, become the most dangerous pilot in the war? How did he hunt balloons when everyone said he was insane? And what really happened on that final day? Let's go back to the beginning. Phoenix, Arizona, 1898. A baby boy is born named Frank Luke Jr. Not rich, not connected, not destined for glory. He was the son of a church pastor, a regular kid from the desert. But Frank Luke had something that separated him from everyone else. He had an obsession with speed, with flying, with pushing limits. By the time he was a teenager, Frank Luke knew he wanted to fly. Not for glory, just because flying was everything to him. When America entered the First World War in 1917, Frank Luke enlisted immediately. He wanted to be a pilot. He wanted to fight. According to military records preserved at the National Archives and documented in American expeditionary files, Luke completed pilot training in 1918. He was assigned to the 27th Aero Squadron. And immediately, he was different from other pilots. He was aggressive, willing to take risks, refusing to follow conventional tactics. His squadron commander, Major Harold Hartney, described Luke as wild, undisciplined, difficult to control, but also incredibly skilled. According to documented accounts from fellow pilots and military records, Luke's first combat missions were frustrating for him. He flew patrol after patrol, fought enemy aircraft, shot down his first confirmed victory. But Frank Luke wanted more. He wanted to be legendary, to be remembered. So he made a decision that changed everything, a decision that no other pilot had the courage to make. He started hunting balloons, German observation balloons, the most dangerous targets in the war. According to military analysis and historical documentation, observation balloons were critical to German military operations. They floated above the battlefield, observing, directing artillery, calling in strikes. They were extremely well defended. Anti-aircraft guns surrounded them. German fighters protected them. Shooting down a balloon was almost certain death. But Frank Luke didn't care about the danger. He wanted to prove something to himself, to everyone. According to documented combat records and pilot accounts, Luke began hunting balloons in August 1918. His first balloon kill was a shock to everyone. One balloon down, but Luke didn't stop. He went back, again, again, again. 2 balloons, 3, 4, 5, 6. His tally climbed in ways that seemed impossible. Impossible because most pilots who hunted balloons died quickly. But Frank Luke kept surviving, kept coming back, kept hunting. 7 balloons, 8, 9, 10. He became a legend, the balloon buster, the most dangerous pilot in the American Air Service. According to documented military records in historical accounts, Luke was also credited with shooting down 4 enemy aircraft during his combat missions. But it was the balloons that made him legendary. 18 total confirmed victories, with 14 being balloons. 14 confirmed balloon kills. More than any other American pilot. More than anyone thought possible. September 29, 1918 started like any other day. Frank Luke woke at his airfield near Verdun, France. He checked his aircraft, a SPAD S-13 fighter, fast, powerful, reliable. According to documented flight logs and military records preserved in the National Archives, Luke was scheduled for a balloon hunting patrol that morning. But something was different about this day. Something Luke couldn't have known. This was the day that would change everything. Frank Luke had already proven himself, already become a legend. He had nothing left to prove. According to accounts from his squadron and documented military records, Luke took off around 10 that morning with another pilot named Joseph Wenner as his wingman. Wenner was different from Luke, more cautious, more disciplined, but he trusted Luke, and Luke was going after balloons again. Their objective, the Meuse River region. Heavy German balloon presence, extremely dangerous, heavy anti-aircraft fire. Most pilots would have called it a suicide mission, but Frank Luke wasn't most pilots. According to documented combat reports and historical reconstruction based on military records, Luke and Wenner found their targets quickly. German balloons, floating above the battlefield, ripe for hunting. But something went wrong immediately. Anti-aircraft fire erupted from the ground, intense, accurate, punishing. According to accounts and historical documentation, Wenner's aircraft was hit almost immediately. Machine gun rounds struck his SPAD, his engine was damaged, his aircraft was failing. But Luke didn't stop. He continued his attack on the balloon, diving hard, firing, pressing his attack. The balloon caught fire, burned, fell from the sky. One more confirmed kill. Luke's 15th balloon victory. But the cost was immediate. Joseph Wenner's aircraft was critically damaged. He was going down. According to documented pilot accounts and historical records, Luke saw his wingman in trouble. He made an immediate decision. He would protect Wenner, provide cover fire, keep German fighters away. This was the decision that would define Frank Luke's final hours. What happened next became one of aviation's greatest legends, Frank Luke's final combat. German fighters converged on Luke's position, multiple fighters from multiple directions, sensing opportunity. Joseph Wenner was struggling. Luke had to protect him, so Luke did what Frank Luke always did. He attacked. Luke turned toward the German fighters and opened fire. One German fighter dove from above. Luke turned hard and fired. The German took hits. Smoke poured. The pilot broke off and descended. One engagement won, but more fighters were coming. Luke's SPAD was taking damage from ground fire, his aircraft absorbing rounds, engines stressed, fuel consumed, but still he fought. Still he protected Wenner. Still he refused to retreat. Luke engaged multiple German fighters simultaneously, diving at one, climbing from another, turning toward a third, his aircraft at absolute maximum capability. German pilots witnessed Luke flying with skill and aggression that seemed almost supernatural. He was outnumbered, alone, damaged, yet fighting like a man possessed. Wenner finally limped toward friendly territory. The immediate threat was over, but Frank Luke didn't leave the fight. He kept attacking, kept engaging, kept fighting. Luke shot down another German aircraft, his 16th confirmed victory, his 4th aircraft kill. But the cost was mounting, his SPAD taking more damage, engine failing, fuel running low. But still, Frank Luke kept fighting.
Then something changed. German anti-aircraft fire achieved a critical hit. His engine was hit, damaged severely. His SPAD began to lose power. Luke's aircraft began to fall, losing altitude rapidly, engines smoking, aircraft failing. Luke could have bailed out, could have parachuted to safety, but Frank Luke did something different. He kept the aircraft nose down, maintained control, aimed for a German gun emplacement below. Luke deliberately crashed his damaged aircraft into the German anti-aircraft position. One final act, one final attack, one final act of defiance. Frank Luke's SPAD hit the ground and exploded. The anti-aircraft position erupted in flames. The balloon buster had died as he lived, attacking, fighting, refusing to surrender.
But wait, there's more to Frank Luke's story. The official records at the National Archives, the Medal of Honor citation, and post-war research by historians tell us what really happened after Luke crashed behind German lines on September 29, 1918. Here's the truth. Luke's SPAD was badly damaged by anti-aircraft fire. His engine was failing, oil was leaking, and the aircraft was barely controllable. But instead of crashing into the German gun emplacement in a final blaze of glory, as the legend often tells it, Luke actually crash-landed his aircraft in a field behind enemy lines. He survived the crash. Luke climbed out of the wreckage, injured but alive. And then he tried to escape. German soldiers surrounded him quickly. He was deep in enemy territory, wounded and without an aircraft. But Frank Luke wasn't the kind of man who surrendered easily. Eyewitness accounts from German soldiers, documented after the war, state that Luke drew his service pistol and fired at the approaching troops. He fought, even on the ground, even surrounded, even wounded. A German officer shot him. Frank Luke died instantly, pistol still in his hand. 20 years old, 18 confirmed victories, 14 balloons, 4 aircraft, all achieved in just a few weeks of combat. The kid from Phoenix, Arizona, who loved speed and flying more than glory, became the balloon buster. After the war, the American Expeditionary Force in the United States Army investigated Luke's final mission. Eyewitness testimony from German soldiers and officers confirmed the sequence of events. On May 8, 1919, Frank Luke Jr. was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor, the first aviator in American military history to receive it. The citation reads, "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity above and beyond the call of duty, after being severely wounded, he descended to within 50 meters of the ground and attacked enemy troops with his pistol." Think about that. The medal wasn't just for shooting down balloons, it was for refusing to stop fighting, even when every rational part of his brain told him to surrender. Frank Luke's story isn't just about aerial victories or reckless bravery. It's about a 20-year-old kid who believed in something bigger than himself. It's about fighting until the very last breath, not because you think you'll win, but because giving up was never an option. And that, ultimately, is why Frank Luke became a legend. So what does the story of Frank Luke mean today? What can we learn from a 20-year-old American pilot who died nearly a century ago? On the surface, it's a story about courage, about refusing to accept limits, about going where other pilots wouldn't go. It's a story about unconventional thinking, about finding success in strategies that everyone else said were impossible. Frank Luke hunted balloons when everyone said it was suicide, and he succeeded. He shot down 14 balloons, became the most feared pilot in the air service. But there's something deeper in Luke's story than just courage or tactical brilliance. It's a story about what happens when someone commits completely to a mission, when someone refuses to compromise. Frank Luke could have been a normal pilot, could have flown conventional patrols, could have accumulated a respectable kill count over time. But he chose a harder path, a more dangerous path, a path that required extraordinary skill and willingness to risk everything. And in choosing that path, he accomplished things that became legendary. According to military historians and aviation analysts who have studied Luke's combat record, his tactical innovation of hunting balloons influenced how air forces think about warfare to this day. He proved that observation balloons could be targeted effectively, that brave pilots could overcome defensive fire through skill and aggression. His methods were studied, his tactics were analyzed, his approach was incorporated into military aviation doctrine. A 20-year-old pilot from Phoenix changed how entire military forces conducted aerial warfare. But there's also something troubling about Frank Luke's story, something that makes us uncomfortable. He was wild, undisciplined, difficult to control. In modern military terms, he would probably be reprimanded, grounded, told to follow procedures. But in 1918, his commanders gave him the freedom to pursue his tactics, to hunt balloons his way, and he became legendary. It raises a question: how many legends are we preventing by enforcing rigid procedures? How many Frank Lukes are we grounding before they become immortal? According to military analysts and organizational psychologists, the lesson from Frank Luke is about balance, not eliminating discipline, but creating space for exceptional talent to operate, allowing brilliant, unconventional thinkers to pursue their vision within reasonable boundaries. That's the real lesson from the balloon buster. And perhaps the most important part of Frank Luke's story is his final mission, his decision to protect his wingman. Luke could have left, could have preserved his own life, could have let Joseph Wenner defend himself. But he didn't. He stayed. He fought. He protected someone else even when it meant risking his own life. That was the choice that made him immortal. That was the character that defined Frank Luke, not his kill count, not his tactical innovations, but his willingness to sacrifice for others.
So what do we take from the story of Frank Luke, an American pilot who became a legend in just a few weeks, who hunted balloons when everyone said it was impossible, who died protecting his wingman, a 20-year-old who changed how aerial warfare is conducted, who defied the conventions of his time, who showed that courage and commitment matter more than rank or experience? Frank Luke died on September 29, 1918. 10 days later, World War I ended. An armistice was signed. The fighting stopped. Frank Luke died fighting a war that ended just 10 days later. But his legend didn't end with the war. It transcended it. The balloon buster became immortal, a symbol of American courage, a warrior who refused to accept limits, a pilot who hunted the impossible. If Frank Luke's story moved you, if the balloon buster's legend gave you chills, hit that like button right now. Subscribe for more incredible warriors, more impossible missions, more stories of American courage. Comment below, what would you have done in Frank Luke's position on that final day? Would you have protected your wingman or fled to safety? What's your take on his decision to hunt balloons? Next week, we're covering the pilot who survived a mid-air collision with a German fighter and flew back to base with half an aircraft. This story will astound you. Thank you for watching. Keep honoring the warriors who changed history. Keep remembering the balloon buster.